But I did just want to preface my next question by saying that I do think there's just an unacceptable amount of angriness and meanness and intentional misunderstanding that goes on in left discourse, particularly online, particularly on Twitter. We all know this. People, going out of their way not to take people in good faith, no pun intended. But with all that said, I did want to, ask a little bit about your radar yesterday, which ruffled some feathers. If anyone's not familiar, you did a radar yesterday, and an accompanying tweet, I'll throw it up on screen here. Marjorie Taylor Greene is right about the FBI, bad faith or not. In today's radar, I argue that the left should take advantage of the right's new acknowledgement of systemic bias and push to abolish the FBI, an institution that has always protected elite power, not the people. And again, that really ruffled some feathers, as I mentioned. And I think that if you just look at that tweet or your radar statement in a vacuum, I don't think there's anything objectionable about it at all. I would agree that, we need a coalition build where possible. And sometimes you have to take yes for an answer, right? And everyone on this stream, myself, Zach, and you definitely, we all agree that the FBI should be abolished. But what I do take issue with, as far as the sentiment you shared about Marjorie, is that I do think it does matter if Marjorie's calls to defund the FBI are in good faith or bad faith. If Donald Trump takes power again, which is what she wants, that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to happen, and which is a very real possibility come 2024. And Trump actually decided to abolish the FBI. I don't necessarily think it would work out the way the left or maybe, some people on the left like yourself are imagining it will. And here's what I fear is that Trump will do basically what other right-wing populists around the country or around the world, such as Viktor Orban has done. I don't know if you're familiar with Viktor Orban in Hungary at all, but basically after he came to power, he fired thousands of government workers that weren't associated with his party. And then turned around and literally a few months later replaced them all with a bunch of yes men and sycophants, and ultimately actually increased the number of people working in the so-called deep state. So he starts off with saying, we're going to get rid of the deep state. This is awesome. And again, that on paper sounds great. Yeah, fire the deep state, get rid of all of these FBI people, whatever. Clean house. The problem is that what Orban did was he turned around immediately and rehired a bunch of yes men. And again, actually increased the deep state in the process. And you may say, well, that's kind of a random example. What does Viktor Orban have to do with anything? Well, Viktor Orban was recently the keynote speaker at CPAC. He's a darling to the American far right, specifically the theocratic, kind of Christian nationalist right wing, which Marjorie Taylor Greene proudly identifies as. And I am worried that I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump, their end goal is to do exactly what Orban did in Hungary. And my worry is that by, kind of propping up these self-described Christian nationalists and giving them credit, I worry that that's playing into that strategy a little bit.
So Democrats have the White House, the House, and the Senate. If Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to put a bill out there or coordinate with Democrats to have a bill to disempower the FBI, when there's a Democrat in the White House and we control both chambers of Congress, I have a little bit of trouble saying we shouldn't do a good thing because hypothetically it can be exploited by a bad person. That's literally the argument they use for not getting rid of the filibuster. So either you want to, when you have power, do things with power that are good,
Is she currently suggesting that a bill goes forward under Joe Biden?
I don't know or care what she's suggesting. Mm-hmm. I'm using the opportunity to address an audience of people, not Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is not my audience. I'm on Rising talking to a relatively conservative audience of people who believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene is acting in good faith. What Marjorie Taylor Greene believes is not my business. I'm talking to an audience of people that could potentially be leftists if they believe that leftists can be the best people to advance their goals. And when I identify that we have a shared goal, for example, understanding that a deep state 3-letter organization that has done nothing but spend 85% of its resources attacking the left since it was founded almost 100 years ago, then I'm going to take that opportunity to co-opt the argument and say, this is what the left can deliver for you. And most of that radar was spent explaining all of the ways why the FBI has always punched down and not punched up. And my argument was not that Donald Trump shouldn't be investigated or that he might not have done wrongdoing. My argument was that you should absolutely keep up this energy for the number one target of the FBI, which is left movements, Black solidarity movements, Chicano movements, Native American movements, and et cetera, on down the line. And that's the sum and total. That's the sum and substance of the argument. And despite the fact that my entire radar was about Fred Hampton being killed and Martin Luther King being blackmailed and all of these things that were like very Black in nature, the overwhelming majority of that conservative audience was like, hell yeah, the FBI has been out against the little guy for a really, really long time. And it's not something that I can trust to reliably attack the people who are actually in power. And what did I say at the end of the radar? I said that Donald Trump, Donald Trump actually being taken down by the FBI, if it happens, will be one of the few instances where the FBI actually took down someone who had the power, money, resources to defend themselves. That's a lark, but it's a frolic, that's a frolic and a detour from their normal status quo. So just like sometimes people commit crimes and do murders and rapes, and that's very, very bad, and police officers arrest those people and those people are punished, great. That doesn't really have an effect on my broader feelings about the systemic problems with the police and whether or not we should abolish or defund the police. And that's the same argument I would make with the FBI. Although I want to be clear, in my radar, I didn't address Marjorie Taylor Greene. I didn't reach out to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I didn't say, Marjorie Taylor Greene, let's make a daisy chain and sit in a field and plot about how we can work together to do X, Y, and Z. I think the left needs to really understand the difference between addressing an audience of people and meeting them where they are and trusting those voters enough to be spoken to and give them an argument, as opposed to the figurehead that has galvanized something of interest to them. Bernie Sanders got in trouble in 2018 when he said he didn't want to call Trump voters racist. He said he would call Donald Trump racist, but said he didn't have any interest in calling those voters racist. And I wrote an article defending that, because at the end of the day, whether or not they're racist is not really material to someone who's running for office. Your job as president of the United States is to take care of and respect the interests of every single person living in the country. That's not my role or your role or your role. You don't have to like anybody. You don't have to respect anybody. And I personally, in my personal capacity, think a lot of people are deplorable, but that's not the issue. The issue is, if you are in a political role, in a public facing role, in a coalition building role, are you able to speak to people with a degree of respect and understanding that could potentially cause them to have trust in you, more trust in you than they have in someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene? And the point of that radar was to say, she is acting in bad faith. I said that explicitly in the radar, but I am not. And maybe you're not either. And if you really believe in this the way that I really believe in this is my plan, not hers, my plan forward. You should come to the left.
But you don't have a 50% chance of becoming president in 2024. And I think that Donald Trump does. And I think that is important to acknowledge when we talk about whether or not she's acting in bad faith. Like, yeah, anti-Semites are correct about the fact that the financial elite is corrupt. That doesn't mean we have to give them credit, because obviously we have come to that conclusion for very, very different reasons. You know what I'm saying? I think the reason that she's come to this conclusion about the FBI is quite simply because she doesn't want former President Donald Trump and potentially future President Donald Trump to be investigated for the crimes that he very clearly committed. So no, I'm not interested in reducing the amount of accountability that politicians, particularly ex-presidents, have to face. And again, for the same reasons that I wouldn't give credit to an anti-Semite for saying these bankers sure are corrupt, I'm not going to give credit to a literal fascist, a self-described Christian nationalist, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for saying that politicians shouldn't be held to account, which is basically what her sentiment boils down to. I understand the way you're approaching it, Briahna, and I especially sympathize with the fact that The Hill has a very conservative audience and you're trying to speak to those people. But again, I am just very worried about empowering this faction of what I do consider to be very, classic fascists in America that are rising to prominence and exploiting many of the things the left does care about.
Help me understand the way that I empowered fascists by saying, I think my first sentence of the radar was, Marjorie Taylor Greene is America's favorite broken clock.
I'm not saying you're...
I hate to admit on this one narrow thing, she happens to have been right about the FBI.
I'm not saying you're empowering them, Briahna. I'm just saying that I think that some people might see that. And I mean, clearly Marjorie herself saw your tweet. She retweeted it and said, yep, I sign off.
I'm really excited that Marjorie Taylor Greene retweeted a video in which she was dragged. Like, there's a way that people could say, oh my God, what a moron, to retweet something in which she was called a bad faith actor who is wrong 99.9% of the time. But instead of actually using that opportunity as a win for the left, A leftist likes nothing worse than when someone actually agrees with them on something. I think they're
Right,
so
but
allergic. They're so unaware. They're
okay,
so not
agreed,
used to
Briahna,
someone
agreed,
actually agreeing with
agreed.
someone. And look, if anybody thinks that me saying, using an opportunity, look, when you're talking to real people, you have to connect with them on something. I'm sorry, you have to take the opportunity. And Bernie Sanders did this all the time. And I don't know if it's what reason people want to not treat Crystal Ball, who did the same thing as me. Bernie
Well, if we were
Sanders,
having Crystal on, we'd be having the same
wait a minute.
conversation.
No, because nobody has. Nobody's interested in her. Nobody has said a single thing about her radar, which is called Candace Owens is right. Bernie Sanders frequently said things like, look, Donald Trump is right about those jobs being sent overseas. And here's my alternative solution to his. Frequently, if you have another political faction that is owning the narrative about true things, you have to acknowledge that their diagnosis of a problem is correct so that you have any credibility in the space. What do you want to say? Like, Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, whoever it is on the right, when they say things that they're obvious, like the Democratic Party has not respected workers. I'm supposed to say, no. Actually, they really, really have. And they're lying about that. Why? Because I don't want people to think that I'm co-signing what they said. No, they're right. The Democratic Party has been disrespecting workers. The Democratic Party has participated in the attacks on unions and decline of union membership over the last 50 years. And that's wrong. And my job is to try to help restore the Democratic Party, or whatever party it is that I'm fighting for, back to its former glory. And to critique the people within my own party who've been responsible for those bad actions. I have no credibility, I'm sorry, if I sit here and try to pretend like just instinctively and defensively in a reactionary way, defend my guy and attack the other guy, even when they halfway alight on a point. Her saying that was a huge self-own. The conservatives basically saying defund the police after they've been walking around in those Blue Lives Matter flags and stuff for the last 5 years is an incredible self-own. And the idea that you wouldn't use that opportunity to point that out, like they've been complete hypocrites. I got thousands of Republicans to sit there and watch a video of Donald Trump flip-flopping on the FBI. What Twitter leftists accomplished was dunking on one of the few leftists.
I'm not talking about Twitter leftists, Briahna. I'm not talking about the people on Twitter. I'm giving you my honest reaction to your radar. I'm not trying to feed into any bad faith arguments. I promise.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not talking to you guys. I'm saying this is my impression of what has been happening on Twitter. Twitter leftists have achieved what exactly? They want to like destroy me. Fine, you've been trying for years. Good luck. Because no one resonates with what they're saying.
Okay, but this isn't about
what I'm saying.
This isn't about Briahna, or this isn't about Twitter, Briahna. And I understand that it sucks to get attacked by people. We've been through that a million times too. I know it's horrible to see a bunch of people saying mean and unfair things about you. My only issue is, the only problem I have is that I really do think that there's a significant chance that Donald Trump will end up back in the White House in 2024. And I really do see him and his ilk, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, pursuing a strategy like the one I laid out, which Viktor Orban has gone about doing in Hungary, by appropriating leftist terms like defund the police and defund the FBI, by appropriating our struggle and then using it for their fascist means. I think that's equally as important to include in an analysis of where she's right and how she's correct. As is saying, well, now a bunch of Republicans have heard my side of the story. Yeah, that's fine, but you're not going to be president. You're not an elected official, and people aren't going to be potentially falling into a complete sham of right-wing authoritarianism because of the language you're using. Obviously, you're not on the right. So, I'm sorry you got attacked.
Kevin, I don't disagree with that is a possible outcome. So is your critique that I didn't add another 5 minutes on to the end of my short, pithy radar, my already frankly too long, and everybody always complains at Rising that my radars are too long. You're upset that I didn't add another 5 minutes explaining that, of course, this could be used for ill, and I have to come up with an entire policy agenda for how to create accountability within a police arm of the United States government, because I don't know the answer to that, which is why I don't talk about it. But what I do know is the FBI has been a net evil for left movements and Black people and other people of marginalized backgrounds in the United States of America. So saying we shouldn't have it is a pretty good no-brainer, is a strong no-brainer for me. Whether or not some other accountability measure needs to be in place, that's a conversation that I absolutely think should be had. but not one that I think had a place in the context of that particular radar. And again, if people had said, this is a very interesting radar, what an interesting starting off place. Let's, as a left community, have a conversation about what accountability measures should exist absent the FBI. What existed before the FBI? Because America existed for 100 plus years before it was even invented. What accountability measures were there for presidents before the FBI? Should we be so invested in the FBI as an accountability measure when it has literally never held a president accountable in the entire history of the United States of America? Maybe that is, in fact, a structural problem with the FBI, and we should figure out how to have some more independent body working on this, because that's the critique right now from the Trumpers, right? The Trump defenders right now are able to exploit the reality that there is a lack of transparency and that it is historically a
But do you think they'd actually replace it with something better if they were in power? Do you think they would actually replace it with something better?
Well, first of all, the they part, again, is a little frustrating to me because, again, Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Correct.
So the idea that everything has to be imagined. Let me ask you this. Do you think that we shouldn't get rid of the filibuster? Do you think that
I definitely think we should get rid of the filibuster, yeah.
All right, but the Republicans are going to use if you get rid of the filibuster, they're going to pass a whole bunch of stuff next time they're on office.
Right, but I wouldn't say that the Republicans would get rid of the filibuster and then replace it with something even worse than the filibuster. That's what I'm concerned about with the FBI.
Well, it's a complete possibility. Republicans can do anything. If they got rid of the filibuster, they can pass any law in the world.
And shouldn't that be part of the calculus we're making, is the fact that in 2 years or less, Donald Trump's probably going to be president again?
I thought that was part of our calculus, and we on the left thought it was better to get rid of the filibuster and pass Biden's actual agenda anymore
Briahna,
over the last 2 years.
Agreed. And if there's a bill in the Congress right now to abolish the FBI full stop, obviously I would support it. And I would say if Marjorie wants to vote for it, that's a net benefit.
Well, there never will be a bill, Gavin. There never will be a bill because the left certainly isn't going to push for it. The left's too busy being mad at me on the internet. This is my entire point, Gavin. This is an opportunity to take a ball and run with it. Oh my God, let's own this issue. Yes, you're completely right. If Marjorie Taylor Greene is left in charge of what it looks like to abolish the FBI, it's going to be a shit show, which is exactly why the left should take this opportunity and say, oh, all of you guys who are politically disaffected, who are these kind of people who watch The Hill that find themselves partyless, they lean kind of right, lean kind of libertarian, don't really know what to feel about things, but definitely don't like the FBI. Let me show you what the left can offer. Let me show you why you shouldn't be tempted by all of these IDW types who sit here and act like they're anti-establishment, but then really go along and, to your point, Gavin, create the exact kinds of power-protecting institutions that have always existed, just with less accountability and more privatization. Let me show you why that's not the answer. Here's the left plan. But instead of a bunch of people who are smarter than me and know more history than me and have more policy chops than me saying, all your concerns are completely legitimate, Gavin, and here's how we're going to draft a new department or changes to the FBI that would make it more transparent and less easily manipulated by politicians in office. It's, oh, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene said it, so we have to go down this parade of horribles to the only possible outcome here, if we even acknowledge the truth that the FBI, FBI is bad, actually, is that we're somehow empowering her to do the bad thing she already wants to do and is going to try to do with or without us.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand that, Briahna. And like I said, I didn't really have much of a problem with your radar myself. Like, it's not like I found it to be totally objectionable. And I thought a lot of the comments and reactions you got were over the top as hell. Again, I am just worried about the fact that because there is such a lack of a strong left presence for people to hang on to right now, that people that, their hearts are in the right place, like myself or yourself, they're going to see these absolute phonies, these total faux populist fascists appropriating our language and our movement. And then those people are going to go over and say, well, I guess if, Bernie Sanders and AOC aren't talking about, defunding the FBI, we got to get on team Marjorie Taylor Greene. Team
of course,
Trump.
I think that's right, Gavin. I think that's 100% what's going to happen. That's why I said what I said. Mm-hmm. If you let Marjorie Taylor Greene be the only one or the one leading the charge on bringing Julian Assange home, bringing Julian Assange, or defunding the FBI. That's what you just described. That is what's happening now. Yeah, that is the outcome now.
And I just don't want to play into that at all.
Intervention. Sorry.
Right. And I just personally don't want to play into that at all. I think that first and foremost, the message should be that this person is a fascist. This person is a faux populist. This person is a phony. Even if they get elected on these, faux populist ideas, they're not going to do them. Just like we already saw under Donald Trump. He said he was going to stop outsourcing. He didn't. Why should we even at all play into these people's hands? But I'm not saying that's what you were doing. I'm not saying that's what you were doing.
But is the critique that I didn't spend another 90 seconds spinning my wheels about how Marjorie Taylor Greene is very, very bad in a fascist?
I'm past your radar at this point, Briahna. Like I said, I don't really have much of an issue with it. I'm not criticizing you anymore. I'm just now speaking broadly about something I'm worried about and that I see happening, which is the appropriation of our movement and our struggle by the faux too.
I'm worried about it too, which is exactly why I did this. And I hear the critiques. Look, there are some leftists who get routinely critiqued for being Putin's puppet or for being too comfortable with Tucker Carlson or what have you. And I have had those critiques and confronted those people and had conversations with them on my show, as I know you have recently as well. And I think that I often do feel at times that people go too far in not being clear that they don't support a person or their political agenda, even when they are agreeing on some narrower point. I have made that critique myself. I personally think that the way to do that is simply to be very, very clear that Marjorie Taylor Greene is bad and also the FBI is bad. I don't think that the answer, me personally, I don't think that the answer is to pretend that what Marjorie Taylor Greene said isn't true. I'm not gonna not say the FBI is bad just because Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That's not.
And moreover, I think it's really, really, really important for the exact reason that you said. I think you're completely right, Gavin. If you let the right own these arguments, people who are like single issue voters, people who think that free speech is first and foremost, people who think that the deep state is a real problem, people who think that authoritarianism is a real problem, are going to be carried away by these superficial arguments that are being made by the right. They are going to do that. So when I see that happening, my argument to the left, and I'm nobody's leader and we don't have one and nobody's listening to anybody, but my argument for the left would be to fill the void first and fast. The left has more theory knowledge and more understanding of what's really going on in these cases than anybody else. But I think we do spend too much time I do think we spend too much time purity testing and pretending that me, with my throttled Twitter account that hasn't grown in 18 months, who can barely get 2,000 views on a video, is somehow elevating a sitting congresswoman.
Right. Now, I'm not accusing you of that, Briahna, and I don't want to get it twisted. I'm a huge fan of your work. I think your presence on the Hill has been a massive net benefit for the audience, getting to hear and be exposed to the kind of arguments that you're making. I'm in no way one of those people. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation, in person, to actually have a reasonable adult conversation. The only other thing I'll say is that while I totally agree with all of the analysis that you've just said and laid out, I still think, and again, it might be a cringe argument, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is I do think it's fair to call her an actual fascist. I do think it's fair to call her a bigot and anti-Semite. So in the same way that, you have to expect to get a little bit pushback. If you put out a radar saying David Duke is right about the bankers, David Duke is right about the financial elite, that's going to start some controversy. Yeah. And I do think you have to understand.
I'm glad it did, Gavin. I did it on purpose, so it got the clicks, and I'm glad everybody watched my video.
I know you did it on purpose, Briahna. I know you did. And all I'm saying is that please don't then turn around and say, well, I'm being under attack by the left. These crazy lefties are attacking me and don't want to take me in bad faith, if you're acknowledging that you intentionally tried to create that reaction.
Look, my grandfather was in the Nation of Islam. My mother went to Black Panther youth organization activities. It's one thing for people to see a spicy headline and be horrified, click on it and say, oh, yeah. It's another thing for people, I'm sorry, overwhelmingly white leftists to repeatedly accuse me of not caring as much as they do about bigotry, not caring as much as they do about fascism, not caring as much as they do about the police state, not caring as much as they do about all these other kinds of things. There's something. Do you
think I'm doing that?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. I just want to clear up because I'm definitely not doing that.
But it's not just, why do you do the clickbait title? And I mean, you work in this field.
Right.
We also do clickbait titles. Yeah, that was what I was going to do.
We all know what the internet is. I diligently make 9 times out of 10 the most boring, serious, bad faith titles, and my channel suffers for it because I want bad faith to be a place of good faith, and I don't want to go there, and I want to have respect for our guests and not do that. But the Hill is different, okay? The Hill is different, and I lose money not doing clickbait. I do what I think is right at bad faith, but other parts of the internet are different.
Yeah,
and it's one thing, and I said this to someone on Twitter who was like, well, you know, you have to expect this, Briahna. And I was like, yeah, I set the bait, but it doesn't mean that I'm not disappointed in people when they routinely take the bait. You know what I mean? Like I would love a world like it's some random Twitter person who I don't know me. I don't expect to give me any benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
You know, some of these people who are journalists that I've worked with, people that I felt in community with for years, people who know my story and my beliefs and my interests and my values, jumping to conclusions and siding with Harris supporting Ukraine emoji flag, B emoji people to dunk on me. And you know, you think I'm making solidarity with Marjorie Taylor Greene? You're literally sitting here in my mentions having solidarity with someone who thinks that Kamala Harris should be queen of the universe.
Yeah.
The literal self-described top cop. So, you know, like, I just think that everyone should have just take a beat before you decide that someone who has never, I'm sorry, I have never given any indication. I have never said anything complimentary about Marjorie Taylor Greene as a human being, about her political beliefs. I said literally she's a dumb, broken clock who was right this one time. And I don't know how much more you can do to distinguish yourself from a human being. I do think if someone wants to say the Nazis were incredibly vile, they are one of the worst, most oppressive groups that have ever emerged on the face of the entire planet. What they did should and will live in history as one of the lowest points of human existence. And wants to go on to make like a narrow point about some like medicine that came out of the horrible torture experiments that they did on people and all of that kind of shit. Like, oh, look, now I'm going to move on to a conversation about
Volkswagen Auto.
It is what it is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Same with slavery
I'm not,
or anything like that. Yeah.
And again, I'm not even necessarily criticizing you on that grounds. I'm just saying I think that might explain some of the backlash you got, some of the reaction.
And I understand the backlash, and I don't mind it at all. When David Wasserman or whatever is like, I don't like this video, that's completely expected. When a leftist does it, that's my issue. With someone I know does it. And by the way, David Wasserman, who's like a resistance liberal type of guy, was so much kinder and more gracious in the way he asked me about the video than 9 out of 10 of the leftists that were in my mentions. He simply said, I don't understand why you would say this. And I said, oh, no, he tweeted something like, I think it's important to note that Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't acting in good faith. And I responded, of course, David, I agree. Here's the clip from the video where I said that. And he was like, great. And I was like, great. And it was a perfectly fine exchange.
Right.
You know, and it is dispiriting when I see, and again, obviously not you guys, but it is dispiriting when I see people on the left not behaving that way. And I have to believe
people on the left are always, have their panties in a twist about something. That is the online left.
But specifically, I think it's being motivated by a weird competitiveness that should not exist in this sphere.
What do you mean?
David Wasserman doesn't have to compete with me. We're in completely different political spheres. Some of the snipes that I get from some folks on the left does feel like it's more about, one-upmanship and claiming territory than it is about what they substantively believe.
I think that's a long time problem on the left, right? Is the fact that it's the holier than thou energy, and so I think that does get in the way of just having a conversation like this one, right? Like, okay, you and Gavin, we had a disagreement. Read into your radar or tweet one way, you had a different intention, and it takes like 20 minutes to sit down and be like, no, I think we're actually on the same page here. We just have a little bit of a difference in framing here, but and I think this is algorithmically motivated. We're all like, we shouldn't be in competition with each other, but the way that the world works is like, oh, this person got 1,500 favorites and I only got 500, so I want to, die inside. What am I doing wrong? And so it forces you to just, you have to attack that person because no, look, now I'm on top of you. Now I just bodied you, and now like your audience might come to me, and all of these different kinds of deals. I just wonder how much of that is the fact that, we're playing with fire as we are making all of our political or not all of our political content on these, oligarchically controlled platforms that are designed to make us all fucking, jump the shark and hate each other. So I don't know. I just think that, not to sound like the grandpa here, but it does feel like we were able to get, a real ways and, like a 20-minute discussion that, the 10,000 people on Twitter having this discourse weren't quite able to reach.
Also, I'd just like to quickly make the point too that, I mean, if we talked a little bit about the Force the Vote movement from maybe a year or so ago, one of the defining elements of the Force the Vote movement, and one of the reasons why Zach and I were able to literally build our entire channel talking about the conversations that happened as a result of the Force the Vote movement, is because the debate was incredibly intense. The debate was incredibly aggressive. We had people from Jimmy Dore to Kyle Kulinski to Crystal Ball, and they were all engaging with other leftists online in a very intense and aggressive way, calling each other out. I mean, I remember some of Jimmy's rants just fucking going off on people for disagreeing with him. And, obviously not just because it helps us with our channel, giving us that spicy content to talk about and react to, but I actually think that that's a healthy and, oftentimes important element of having an online left movement, is that healthy and aggressive debate. Yes, it can become unproductive, but I don't think we should shy away from people intensely, criticizing one another or one another's strategies. I just think that it's upon us to respond in turn and continue that.
I think the strategy criticism is fine. During Force the Vote, what I thought was very productive was that I appreciated was Sam Cedars' willingness to come on bad faith and actually have a conversation. Now,
he kind of molded.
I'm sorry?
He said he kind of molded the whole time, but yeah, I guess.
I thought we were having like a respectful, like we disagreed, but I thought we were having respectful. We had like a 3-hour conversation. What didn't feel right was some of the things that he said on Twitter a day later. And I think there's a difference. There are people who have tweeted objections to my radar that I disagree with, but they're people who I like and who I will not respond to on Twitter because I'd rather just have a conversation with them. I'm not interested in dragging, Jordan Cherryton, who I like and who is my friend. I will just DM him later and be like, hey, I understand what you're upset about, but here's what I actually said in the radar. Let's talk about it. It's so ridiculous that people are not, you're all friends. You can all DM each other. Why aren't people DMing each other more? It's so silly, and I don't like that some people have publicly disagreed with me, but I'll just handle it later because I want to maintain those relationships. And that's what, again, and this, I don't mean to personalize it, but that's the only part that bothers me is when people who literally know me and could text me or DM me choose instead to grandstand. And you got to just ask yourself what that's about.
Yeah, and as a related follow-up, and probably our last question, because you are such a controversial figure in the online left, and you do have your critics, do you ever consider just reaching out to those people and being like, fuck it, let's hash out the beef. I'm going to go full debate, bro.
All the time. I'm going on Young Turks tonight.
Shit, really?
I would have loved to have him on Bad Faith, but this was
talking to Jank.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, we're gonna have to go live and cover that, Zach.
I get off work at midnight, so we'll do a late night Vanguard.
Holy shit, I did not know that. So you're going on TYT tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's gonna be epic. Are you gonna be debating the Marjorie thing?
I don't plan to debate anything at all. As far as I know, it's just a conversation. We scheduled this a while back when, after the fake leftist. Yeah, I reached out to him after that and asked if we could talk.
Uh-huh.
And this is the result of that.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to see that conversation. Obviously, I don't know if you saw our commentary from the time, but I thought Jink was totally out of line to call you, or really anyone, a fake leftist. But that aside, I am really excited to hear that conversation. I'll definitely be tuning in to check that out. And I thought we had a really good conversation. I really appreciate the fact that you're always willing to have a reasonable, calm discussion and obviously facilitate them as well on your show, which has, just some of the best conversations as far as online left media goes. So huge shout out to you, Briahna. We love chatting. This over an hour went by way quicker. I know we said we were going to have you on for like 45 minutes, so I apologize for keeping you here. Thank you so much for dropping by.
To do this.
Yeah, and hey, there's still one real leftist and only one MSNBC wannabe over here on the Vanguard. I'm kidding.
No, I really do. Like, I legitimately watch your guys' coverage more than probably almost anybody else's online. You guys are entertaining and you're fair, and I really appreciate you both.
Well, that means a lot to say. Thank you.
Yeah, that's almost embarrassing. Whenever people say that, I'm like, why are you watching me? Like, why? What is it? Watch someone else, please.
No, you guys are fair. You've got a good little rapport going. Also, are you guys you're about to hit the road, right?
Yeah, on Sunday.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we're going to be
I'm rooting
announcing
for you.
we're going to be announcing the subject of our first documentary pretty much as soon as we have it in the can, the footage. But yeah, we're going to be shooting that this weekend. Again, I'm trying to leave it a little bit of a mystery, but we're really excited. It's going to have to do with third-party victories of the past. I'll just put it like that. I'm sure some people can infer. But anyway, really excited about that. And again, thank you so much, Briahna. You're always welcome on the Vanguard. We love your content. We love what you've been doing over at The Hill and can't wait to see what you do next.